I wanted to take a couple minutes and share a little bit about the reporting system that is built into the libraries that the front end uses. The reporting system, not to be, not to confuse anyone, but the reporting library here is not the reporting system. It uses the reporting system. This was basically a DLL that I could use to extend the number of reports or the detailed information that the reports provide outside of the actual interface itself. It was kind of like a dump, if you will. It was just a place for me to dump new reports into and to try some different kind of coding techniques out, which was kind of its purpose. But back to the reporting system. So the reporting system is built into the utilities library, and it's built in basically two ways. Well, it's basically two ways it's built in. It is the exact same reporting methods, but they are used at two different entry points. To if it'd probably be the easiest way for me to explain it is two different entry points. So, for example, all the information you see on the screen, it doesn't matter where it is, except for this. This is a list box. But eventually, I'm going to move that over to a list view. So it's all basically, it can use the same thing. But all of these lists, I'm just going to call them lists. It's a list view, but I'm going to call it lists. All of these lists are comprised of a couple elements. The first element would be considered the header, which is your column header up here. You'd see this in like a light blue up here. This would be like a column header, which represents the information that you're looking at in the list. So the basic reporting idea is to take those two elements and make them dynamic. So how would I do that? So basically, you can define reporting in a couple ways. I think I showed previously how you could create a reporting file which looks up particular internal quote database information. There's many different ways, but the actual reporting itself, to where it shows the information, this is what I want to talk about. So basically, how it works is you give it a header. You say, this is my header. So in effect, you can see where it's got action plugins version. It's just, this is my header. And then you give it, in this header, you define what you want the column to be visually, such as action plugin version. But you also define a couple other things. One of them is you define the field that you want to display, and then the formatting you want to display for that specific field. And those are found in various libraries over here. So, for example, let's take a look at this one here. Okay, whoop, not that. Okay. So, over here, you can see report headers. That's just a report header. So you can see that each column is separated by a comma. Now, the methods used to generate headers and things like that, you can specify whether you want the delimiter, I can't even say it, the delineating character to be a comma, a bar, whatever you want it to be. By default, it assumes that it's looking for a comma. So in report 102, it technically has two columns. It's got the item, and it has the occurrence. Now, the internal database has a set of fields, and you can extend those fields. So the database has an embedded database where you can, you can set up, like let's say for example you have a file name. A file name has creation date, date it was modified, size in bytes, things like that. Those are fields, and those fields have a fixed name, a fixed identifier. So in a sense, you can see where item has this field identifier of N for name. There is also a %D, which is display name. So a display name can be different than a name. So a name could be the full file name, for example, whereas the display name, you only want to display the relative file. That's in the internal database. But then there is a database within that database that allows a person to add custom fields. And that's what this is. This references a custom field. So whenever you generate a report, such as what is up here in these list views, you give it the header. And it says, okay, I know what the column headers are, and I know what fields you want me to represent. And then what you do is you pass it a database item, and then it will say, okay, out of this database item, I know you want these fields. And that's basically what it shows here. That's all this is. Very, very simple stuff, very, very straightforward stuff. So therefore, it's the same routine no matter what the list is. Even though this is a plugin, it's the exact same routine. If I was to put one of these headers over here, so if I was to actually say this database item is a header and this is the text, if it finds that text in a style, in that external text file that defines styles, if it finds that header there, then it's going to put colors over here just like you see here. So it's common. Everything is the same. So nothing uses anything special. It all uses the exact same routines. So that handles internal reports. Reports that would be coded, reports that I might put in there, or maybe something, a report that someone else at a later time goes in and codes it, codes their own kind of report. This lets you, so the way the system works is it lets you modify this particular header. So for example, if I wanted to see, let's say this was a file, like some database items don't have a full set of fields, but let's say file, here we go, like let's say this report 180 reports a file name. Well, I could go in here and put a comma. I want to put another field I want to actually add another field. So I want to put, let's say, size, and I believe the parameter is s. And that's all it takes. So now, if I was to go over here and and I don't know which report this is, but if I was to go over here and then go to a menu option where it fires off a report, instead of that report now showing just file, it now shows file and size. There's now a size column. Not all items are going to be populated, have a full population of fields. It depends. So let me go ahead and take this out since I'm not sure what this does. And the L is the format. So anything that's in parentheses next to a field is the formatting for the field, and L simply means left justify the field. Otherwise, the default is centering. So it's very, very simple stuff. Very simple stuff. It allows the user to go in and modify how they want the report to look. Now, that's internal reports. Now let's talk about external reports. So one type of external reporting is it is simply showing a text file. That's simply a form of external reporting. So if I was to go over to, let's say here, and I want to where a user had posted basically their plugin or their load order text. Let's take a look at their plugin text. We're going to click that. And then we're going to go back over here, and you can see this is an absolute straight out flat report. It doesn't care what the text line is. It doesn't really even care whether the report has a header. It's just saying every text line I'm going to display on its own line. With just this is, if you was to look at this a certain way, it simply would mean Oh, I sorted it. Let me fix that. Give me 1 second. Let's get this back. Okay, hopefully that fixes it. All right. So, and I don't know if it fixed it or not, but hopefully it did. Okay, so this is just a flat. I don't believe it did because there's the column down there. Let's wax that, and then let's try this again because I don't want to show it sorted. Let's do that one. So here we go. So you can see and that's really just what I consider. It's like a flat report. It's just flat. It's a flat text file. So it doesn't care what the text is. It's simply going to show it, just as it is. So this is kind of like the very basic thing. I use this for things like you just saw. The system has something built in to where it watches for files to be created, and then you go in and define what you want to do when certain files are created, and patterns do apply. So I literally said if it's a plugin star, I think it's like star plugin star asterisk plugin asterisk dot text, anytime that pattern matches, it automatically says, oh, you've downloaded a plugin text file, let's go ahead and throw it directly up on the screen. So this is another type of report. It's the same system. It's the exact same function over here. It's the exact same. It's this function right here. It's the same thing. This is called for all of them. This is called for every single one, not the lists per se, because this generates data that the list view can use, and then it has its own kind of system. So that's a flat form of that. There's another type of flat report that also works. Now, what this was designed for is to extend the functionality of the application. That is really what its purpose is. It's to extend it. So if a file has an identifier, if a file starts out with an identifier, which is a $sign and then a 3-byte identifier, then it knows that this is a special file, and it doesn't care about the file extension or anything. It automatically looks at the file. So when a file is created, it'll look at it and say, is this a special file? And in this file, this identifier when just means it's a report, and the title of the window is test report. Here is the header. The header is field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, and then these are the reporting items of the field. That's what this is. So this is called a flat. It's another flat report, but it literally says you've only given me a header and you've given me the data. And the header, the column headers are separated by an identifier. The default is a comma, and the data is also separated by the same identifier, which is a comma. And when this exists, when this happens, and it actually discovers that a file is created that has that identifier in it, we're going to copy it here, and then we're going to paste it over in I know it's looking at its own directory, its own folder. Okay, you can replace it or you can create it. I went ahead and ran the test and replaced it, and as you can see, there is the report. So this is a way of extending the functionality of the application. So the application can fire off an external program which outputs text, and it could even be output to the console, and you use a pipe command to pipe it to a text file. So if you pipe that to a text file, it literally says, okay, but this looks at the header. Otherwise, it's not going to know what to do with it, because there's no way with a text file. There's no way I could literally say, okay, there's a comma in the first line, therefore that's a field identifier, when that could be a comma in a sentence in a text file that I just want to display. Like, let's say a document, let's say a readme.txt. So the header identifier defines what you want to do with it, and there's various identifiers. You can send the output to a tab if you want to put it in one of these tabs. You don't have to send it in its own form like this. You can send it in its own tab. There is an extension to this, what I call this is what I call a basic reporting system. It's just basic. Because everything is there. The column headers are there, and then the data is there. And all I have to do is just separate the columns, separate the data, and then just throw it up in a list. There's no colors, there's no warnings or anything like that involved. It's just a flat file that's a report. So this lets other applications create text files that can then be loaded as a report automatically, such as the output of a program. It doesn't matter what the program is, as long as it produces output that can be captured and piped into a file. There is an extension to this reporting system. And again, like I showed you before, there's other reporting systems that let you scan databases and report fields, things like that. But there is an extension to this. I'm going to show you this over here. There is an extension to this, which is that basic reporting system. And it's used throughout the application. So there's many examples of how to utilize the libraries throughout the application. This one is in the main interface. So this particular report basically is a flat report that instead of you reading a text file, the text file is generated in real time, and then those lines, those text lines, as a whole, are passed to the reporting system, which then generates what you see here. And the extended system, where you extended it, it allows you to add colors to fields. You can add colors to any column. There's default error, warning, I think caution are the defaults, which give you the style colors that you set up. But then you can add other custom colors as well if you want. But by simply setting a warning flag, it'll show in yellow. So it kind of makes it a very, very simple way to generate a report to say, this is what you need to look at. This is the problem. And in this instance, these drives are getting full. That's what this does. This is just simply a drive report. The actual drives themselves are in the utilities library. That's where you say, give me a list of available drives. And it knows what type of drive it is. In this case, where it knows it is a mapped drive. It knows that. And that's what it shows. So that's how you can extend it. That's the extension system. So you can go from just a flat text file to where you can bring up just a text file and automatically bring that up. You can go to a report where it shows columns, where it's very, very simple. I mean, the format of this is incredibly simple. It's just column headers, and then each, if you go in here and you do like this, you put all this in here, right? And then you go back into it, and let's go ahead and close this. If you go back into it, and we'll copy this, let's go ahead and copy this, and then we'll paste it back over as if something was updated, then it'll reflect, see, it reflects everything I just added. So again, that's just a way, that's the way that I chose to extend the functionality of the interface. So instead of having to add a report, again, instead of having to require the intervention of a programmer to go in and add a report to code, the code is still viable because it gives you the ability to watch whatever folder you want. So let's say you have your own custom reporting folder that your external programs are writing data to. You can watch those folders, and then you can watch a particular folder, and then you can unwatch that particular folder. I open those values up through the pipe, so you don't need to be a programmer to do that. You just pass a simple opcode saying the opcode is this, and this is the parameter is the folder name. So once the opcode says, oh, you want me to watch this folder, if I'm not already watching it, I will watch it. And then anything that gets put into that folder is going to go through that file creation, file update, file deletion event creator, which then gets gets thrown into the pipe. It gets queued into that main pipeline to where those events can be processed. And that's how that system works. So this way, again, if you have like an external program, you can write an external program that puts data in a certain format. You can take any of the text files, because they're all text files. You can take any of the text files and you can write your own program to do your own kind of report, and then simply run it. It outputs the data. The application says, oh, you've created a special report. There's a special text file which has an identifier in it, which is up here, has this identifier. And I'm going to take it from there. So that's the built-in reporting system. It allows you to dynamically change the fields that you want to see, not just in something like this here, but the internal reports that I was showing earlier have little RPT, report definitions, in them, which, let's see, where are we at here? Where are we at here? So you can see that these different internal reports. These are the header. These are the headers, and the whole reporting system is basing what it's going to show you based on what the header is, what you tell it the header is, and this lets the user go in and define what they want to see. Now, in some cases where there is no data, that is where you're going to see the question marks. There's going to be some fields that are going to be like all question marks, and I don't know right off the top of my head which one will have that. But some of these reports may have just in the columns, you may see nothing but just question mark, like 3 question marks or 4 question marks. That means that it can't find the field that you're wanting to display. And that's pretty much it with the reporting system. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. It allows dynamic changes. And that's what this is. So, by switching these particular views that I was showing much earlier, where you can go in and you can switch the views of this list, that's what it's doing. It's swapping between different header constructs, or in that instance, it's called toggling the views. So it's a TCV record rather than an RPT record, but it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. It's just I just gave it a different identifier to differentiate it. So if it's TCV, anytime you do a certain opcode, it'll attempt to advance to the next TCV construct. And if it can't find it, then it just defaults back to whatever the first one is it could find. And that's pretty much the reporting system. That's how this works. That's why these things look similar. This is a caution. That one's a caution. So by setting the caution flag, it automatically throws up a caution image, and it throws up yellow. If it's the main item, if it's a warning, it does this. So this is and these are the images and things are all kind of little subsystems that are built in that allows more grained tailoring of how information is displayed. That is more at the library level than, let's say, but there is a way to do it. You can do it with a report, but it doesn't. You can't put in a report in the reporting system. You can't put an image in, let's say, a column, but you can specify an image to use at the beginning of an item, and that's what these are. That's all this is. So it's the exact same system. It's just I'm saying, hey, this is a header item, and this particular header item has an image associated with it, and then this level of that reporting system just says, okay, well, this is, and then I'm going to do this. I've coded it to report it in a certain way, and that's what you see. So that's the basis of the reporting system and how it works. It's pretty flexible. Out of the box, it'll work with different types of text files. Like I say, from a flat text file, which you've seen by looking at like the load order text, you can do that. That's externally defined. It's not defined in the interface itself. You have to go in and tell it, I want to look for these files, and then this is the file I want to automatically throw up as a complete just text file report. Or if there's a special identifier record in the text file, then it'll handle itself accordingly. And there's a couple identifiers you could use that do different things. Like I said, one of them opens a form. The other one, there's actually I think 5 or 6 different identifiers. One is the flat. This is the flat report that you see. If I were to change this identifier, let's say to RPT, like this, RPT, it's going to expect flags. It's going to expect each column item to have its own flag, and then it's going to expect a few other fields to exist to generate the report. It's going to expect a few more. So, like I say, that way it makes it extensible. So, it empowers the user again and puts the control in their hands to say, this is some basic coding. This is how, this is just a way of coding something to do something, but really how you want to do it is up to you. Okay, so don't want this to be too long, but I wanted to kind of show how this reporting system works. And everybody, like I always say, have fun modding and have fun programming and coding, and just try different things. I mean, the worst that could happen is it just doesn't work. That's the worst. So, all right, everybody, you have a good evening, and I'll chat with everyone later.